And you think that winning a final can make other things to be forgotten about, or it won't save the season?
Not really. Like the manager say, even if you win the trophy, nothing will change in the Premier League because the season in the Premier League we were not good enough. But I think, yeah, something can change because we know we will play Champions League next season. So at the end, we will win one trophy. I hope so. Yeah, but I agree with the manager. At the end of the day, it's not good enough because in the Premier League we didn't do much better.
But Cupo, let's kind of look forward towards that Europa League final versus Tottenham. Kind of talking about both of these teams, who do we think has the edge, whether it be the manager, the goalie, the defence, the midfield, the attackers? That's what we're going to be going through.
Line by line, baby.
So
line by line.
Yeah.
So we're going to start with managers, which I'm going to be entirely transparent here, is this was very difficult because they've both had interesting seasons, we'll call it. I chose here the edge. Essentially, I'm going to go with Ruben Amorim. I say that only because while they both, I think, necessarily need to win here, I think Ange Postecoglou has had a harder go with some of the ways that he's been a little bit too rigid and just trying to plug and play players and asking of them things that sometimes it seems like they're entirely incapable of. They never really got that buy-in from his own squad. So I'm going to go here with Ruben Amorim. Yes, he is a little bit more defensively sound, a little bit more disciplined and organized, I think, despite the fact that they obviously have had their issues this season as well.
I'm going to disagree. I think Ange has showed, especially down the stretch as of late, a little bit of flexibility against Bodo Glimt. It wasn't the Spurs side that we were used to seeing. And if I'm looking at Ruben Amorim, still haven't seen a comprehensive performance from his side in the way that he wants them to play. Because you look at the Lyon game, that wasn't the manager's hand. That was absolute madness. We've never seen a comeback that size in Europe. That was crazy. That was the magic of Old Trafford, in my humble opinion, more than the hand of the manager. And against Athletic, they went down a man, Athletic, very early on, that I think really swayed the tie in Manchester United's favor. And they were great, but I don't think specifically that was the manager's influence. And actually, until they started winning, they were the worst team at Old Trafford against Athletic, an Athletic side that was missing a lot of players. So I think towards this end of the season, I've seen a little bit more in Ange.
In
Ange, yeah.
Can we give it a draw?
You know what? I did ask producer Chris if I could do a draw here because I was literally hand wringing. I was like, well, maybe we just like throw it in a bowl and mix them around and pick one. But we don't, okay? Like my feet were held to the fire, all right? So I don't know. I like to think that what happened.
This was a lose-lose situation.
It really was. You know,
wasn't it?
I know. We do need to keep it moving. We're going to move on to keepers, which I'm sure, again, when you look at Vicario and then you look at André Onana has been dragged through hell this season, and quite frankly, it's been warranted in a lot of cases. With that being said, he did have most clean sheets, most saves. Unfortunately, and this is, again, I went back and forth and capitulated. I think I have to go with Vicario only because he's been more consistent. I think that his ball distribution is good. And with that being said, when you look at Onana, I think he's just been a little bit too volatile for me. Yes, great shot stopper, but also more than a handful of yellow cards for goalkeepers, a little bit worrying when you start leading in just errors and fouls. A lot more of his errors have led to goals, unfortunately, for United. So I went with Vicario here.
Yeah, I do think the former Empoli goalkeeper is better than the former Inter goalkeeper.
Thank you for putting it in terms that I appreciate.
Yeah. You know what would be interesting to see, though? I think that sports is so interesting with this respect that it puts the platform for Onana, because there's been so much conversation about him. He got taken out of a game, he got put back in, and obviously he's been at fault for so many times. I wonder if he comes up big in the final in some moment, whether it's a big save, whether it's a penalty kick, maybe it goes to penalty kick shootouts and he's the hero. I could totally see it. Classic. And so maybe just from the mental perspective, do do you put the goalkeeper edge for Onana just because of everything he's been through?
So Tottenham have got the edge over goalkeepers. What about defenders? Who has the edge?
Yes. Okay. Defensively, we're taking a look at Pedro Porro and Van de Ven for Spurs, who are great contributors, I'd say, to their attack. Porro, obviously, lots of defensive weaknesses, can get caught out. Seen him get diced up in 1v1s. Not exactly what you want to put your vote of confidence in. I went here with United with Maguire and Lindelof in their back line. I think that United, they have this ability to stay organized, defensive compactness, composure, things that really, really count in big games. So I'm giving the edge here to United.
Yeah, Maguire's kind of been
the guy.
Yeah, the guy lately.
I mean, he's been scoring goals, getting assists. He's on the wing one game. He's in the box the other. I mean, he's been big time on both sides of the ball.
Standout. I think out of all the defenders, especially in the Europa League, he's been the best. I do think that the better backline completely is Spurs. I mean, with Miggy Van de Ven and Cuti Romero, I think that's a very solid partnership that we haven't seen it much because either one of them has been injured.
Right.
In a final,
you think we're going to see them,
I mean,
whether or not?
Personally, to my bias, obviously give me Cuti Romero in a final. I know he can be rash at times, but if there's a warrior that you want to eke out a result when desperation hits, I want Cuti Romero on my team over the Manchester United backline that sometimes could be a crapshoot and could come apart when desperation hits.
I agree with you there. I just think that with Spurs, with the injuries, with the in and outness of it, I can't put a vote of confidence on that right now.
Okay, so
midfield.
That one. Midfielders.
Okay. Midfielders. Let's just say I'm leaning Man United with this one. With their injuries all in, still Bruno Fernandes and Casemiro have managed to lock it down. They're really integral to their success as a squad. I just don't see Sarr or Bentancur really contributing too much for Spurs. I think that Spurs have been way too up and down. Again, to Nico's point, I'm calling it a blip. The instances where they've succeeded and they've looked really good just haven't been consistent.
Yeah, and no Maddison for Spurs, obviously, in that midfield. Bruno Fernandes is by far not only the best midfielder in this final, he's the best player in this final by a country mile.
Correct.
Yeah, and there's likely no Lucas Bergvall either.
And Casemiro's been resurrected in this Europa League, so he's had some fantastic performances.
A lot of Casemiro renaissances.
I mean, I thought he was getting close to being done completely, and this Europa League run, he's been pretty close to fantastic.
And forwards, I think that Marcus, our researcher, will really appreciate me here. I'm going Spurs for that top line. Solanke, who last I checked was doubtful, but I'm sure that he will play. And Brennan Johnson bring a lot to that top line. 17 goals to be exact. Yes, a bit of a cliff in terms of losing Kulusevski, who's a bit of creativity up there, and also just assists. But against Amad Diallo and Rasmus Højlund, who we've seen kind of be a shadow during points in the season with 10 goals apiece, I think it's easy to say Spurs have a better top line.
Yeah, if we're considering Højlund, Zirkzee injured, right? Garnacho fits in there. Diallo fits in there if you want, wing back, whatever, on the attack. I think overall Spurs do have a better attack, and what a moment would be for Son, who's coming back from injury, to play in this final and win his first trophy for Spurs. What a story that would be.
From what you've said, Cupo, Man U have got the edge.
Yeah, from the majority. I mean, obviously, football, it's beautiful, so any given day, the tables could shift, but I really think that United right now have the edge. I think the betting lines right now are marginal, so, I mean, y'all can get in on that. I'm not a better...
I think edge was way too positive of a word. I think the title to this segment should have been, who is less dull?
Yeah.